All right, good to see everybody, and welcome to our Tuesday morning meditation and spiritual practice session. And all right, good to see everybody. One of the things that I've been thinking a lot about, and we'll speak a little bit more about it on Friday night, is how we respond to fear. And I'm going to put, when I talk about fear, that's also anxiety is a part of that. And really, usually when we think about anxiety or fear, uh, anxiety is really about the fear of a negative outcome in the future, fear of a negative outcome in the future. And our tradition, especially in the Hasidic teachings, really wants to be very clear that that fear is not all bad, that there are levels and depths of fear and love that are really important to divine service. And really those two, really divine service, being able to be a blessing in the world, in some sense taps into these two qualities of ahava, love, and yira, which is fear, but more translated as awe. So love and awe. And what's interesting, there's different words for fear. The word for being afraid of a negative outcome, or what the spiritual masters will call a lower fear, is really nailed by the word pachad. Pachad means to be afraid of some kind of punishment or consequence or negative outcome. And then there's another kind of fear on the spectrum, which is yirah, which is awe. And it comes from the word lirot, which means to see. So it's almost like when I really open my eyes and fully see the depth of reality, the depth of the infinite presence, there's an element of awe. And that element of awe has a similar thread that we talk about when we talk about fear, which is the sense of being really insignificant in the greatness of it all. So much of what really kind of taps into a lot of our fear comes down at root to death and our own mortality. And so the sense of awe, of that sense of being totally insignificant in the, and I went, actually, that's not the best word. Insignificant is not, but just to be a speck or a drop, a significant drop or speck, but still just a speck or drop in the largeness of the depth of the creator and of life and of reality. And so the way that the Hasidic masters talk about it is they talk about that it's almost like rungs in a ladder. There's a lower fear that we call pachad, which is the fear of a negative outcome in some way. There is a lower love. It then goes up to a lower love. And a lower love is when we are, when we feel a sense of connection and being drawn towards something in our created world. That can be another person. It can be it can be the nature that's around us. It can be ideas. And that lower love is, it's what most of us experience as love, in that we're feeling very much that that there is something finite that we are experiencing our love towards. Then we move up the ladder and we move into what's called, then they move into a higher fear. This is what we were talking about with yirah. And a higher fear is, in this place, I'm not feeling concerned about a negative outcome. It's more that I'm just really aware in the deepest way that I am so part of connected to an infinite web of relationships and reality, and any drop stone that I drop in the pond is going to have ripples that are going to go out. I realize that I can't do or think without there being some kind of consequence, whether we want to say positive or negative. It just makes me realize that everything matters, um, and and yet everything is beyond me at the same time. And that is, a sense of awe, a sense of, wow, I'm a part of all this. But then there's even a higher level of service, which is the higher love. And the higher love is this place of, now my love is not just directed towards a finite part of the creation, another person or um, another piece of nature or something like that, but it's to the infinite one that is infused within that, within the creation. So in this case now, it's not that I'm just feel a love for my son or my daughter or my spouse, but I'm actually tuned into the God presence that is in them. And what I'm loving in them is that God presence. It's kind of if we, and we kind of experience this all the time, but we don't always call it this, that sometimes if we really think about it, the qualities what draws us to the people that we love is in some way in which the kind of spirit of aliveness and energy and divinity is what kind of gets expressed in their own unique personality. And we love that. A lot of the time we think that it's their personality that we're loving. We identify more with the lower love, but really it's that kind of life force, that essence, that what we might call soul or spirit, that's being expressed in them in any given moment, that is really at the root of our love. And that is the higher love that's there. So again, it's recognizing, it's being able to identify what is it that our attention is drawn towards right now. Is it drawn towards something that's finite, or is it drawn towards something that is infinite? And both are present in human consciousness at every moment. The question is where will we put our attention? And so that, what we're speaking about is using the example of a person with love is also we can also apply to this sense of fear, that it's really, where do we put our attention? That there is, when we're so identified with our finiteness, with our sense as being a separate self, then it really feels like the things that happen around, the possible outcomes that can happen, can be very threatening. But when we begin to identify with ourselves as being part of this intricate web, and who we are at our core isn't actually finite, but is infinite, then we are able to tap more into that experience of the higher fear or the awe, and not be so paralyzed or tense around what goes on with anxiety. So we'll take some time in our meditation to practice this. It's really, what do we pay attention to? So let's get comfortable. Find a comfortable place to sit that you can be fairly still without having to move or adjust your body position. And close your eyes. It's great if your spine can be straight. And begin by becoming aware of breath, noticing the movement of the inhale as it enters through your nostrils or your mouth. Allow your body to gently expand to make room for the inhale. And then as you notice that inhale reaching its maximum length, notice how it switches to an exhale, and follow the air out of the body, noticing the body's contraction. And then once you notice that the exhale reaches its maximum length, follow the breath back in through the nostrils or the mouth for the inhale, following the same cycle over again. As you pay attention to the movement of breath, notice the entire outline of your body from the top of your head to the tips of your toes. Notice how your body expands, more notably in the belly or the chest with the breath, but also feel how the shoulders, the arms, the fingertips, the legs, the toes, how everything gently expands with the inhale and contracts with the exhale. As you're aware of the outline of your body with breath in and out, also notice the contact, the pressure of your bottom on the chair or the cushion. Notice the distance between the bottom of your spine and the top of your head. Notice the position of your legs and where the bottom of your feet meet the ground. And as you're aware of breathing and body, you can be aware of all the sounds that are present in your space and outside. Letting those sounds meld in with the experience of breath and body. All one expression of this moment in the divine symphony. Letting all parts of your experience be present in each moment. Any emotion that we experience, anxiety, love, we put a label on it. We have a concept around it. But if we look deeply into the experience of it, we find what we find right here, a moment-to-moment experience of breath, of body. We might notice a tension, a contraction that accompanies, that makes up what we call anxiety or fear. We may notice an energy in the mind as all the possible scenarios in a given moment are played out. But as we sit with breath and body and sound and the symphony, all of those things, all of those experiences are just instruments in the orchestra. that there really is, in some ways, no such thing as anxiety or fear in the way that we usually conceptualize or think about it. All there is energy unfolding moment by moment. Thought forms energy in the mind that creates experiences in the body. And we can open to the possibility that all of it, everything in our moment-to-moment experience is an unfolding of the divine, is an unfolding of the energy of life, of creation. Let yourself tune into the vitality of the breath, of the body, of the sounds around you. That there's an aliveness and energy that's present in everything. Let yourself be present to the energy of your experience, the vitality, the aliveness. And as you open to place your attention on that vitality, that energy that is in the breath and in the body and in the air around you, all those different parts of our experience that we label in different ways are all just experienced as the one alive presence. That manifests itself in multiplicity of forms, but it is the one alive presence. The one alive presence that animates every cell in our bodies. Everything. And as you pay attention to the alive energy that's present in this moment in its multiple forms, also be aware of the quality of awareness that is present. That is what is responsible for noticing breath and body. Where does our attention come from? Allow yourself to open to our very attention, our very consciousness, our very presence is also that one alive presence. There is no outside looking in. There is no observer. Even in the act of observing, there is the one presence that is in the very attention of the observation. Feel the aliveness, the presence in that attention. At the same time that you feel the presence, that you notice the presence in everything. I'm going to be quiet now for a period of time. I invite you to continue to pay attention to your moment-to-moment experience, breath, body sensations, sounds, and to hear all of it as divine symphony, including your own cellular processes. And to also awaken to the very presence of your own attention as being part of that divine vitality. And when you find that your mind contracts around a particular part of your experience, even that, see if you can be aware that even that movement of contracting is also part of the divine energy. And that you can in any moment recognize the divine energy that's present wherever you are, in whatever moment you find yourself. you'd like, you can join me for this nigun in your own space. I, 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 Go ahead and open your eyes. Come back to the space. And want to invite any comments, sharings, questions, whether it's about what we talked about earlier as lower fear, higher fear, what it's like to even the idea of tapping into the moment-to-moment experience that we would normally label as anxiety to be just divine energy that is that's just present in thought forms and body experiences. The idea of what it's like to, in any given moment, to try to pay attention to that aliveness that's present in ourselves and another person, whatever. So feel free to unmute yourselves and speak. For the recording, I'm gonna keep it on this what's called spotlight video, which is on me. So your voices can be shared and heard, and for the YouTube recording, but it won't be the whole grid of everybody. So you can just know that as you're sharing, what will be captured is just your voice, not your face. So any thoughts? Let's see.
Rabbi?
Yes.
I'd like to go back to what you were saying about ahava. I don't know if there are different words, because I was thinking about the love that I feel for people in my personal life that I'm, very close to, and those relationships are actually pretty complicated. But I mean, this is something I always do, but now more than ever, I am really looking for this bond with all of humanity. And I feel, I look for stories about good things that people are doing for each other. And then because there's just so much going on, there's so much negativity. Anyway, so when I read these things, then I feel this incredible closeness with humanity, with human beings in general and all over the world. I think about people sacrificing or risking their lives, and it just, well, without going so much into it, but I really am so seeking this bond so much more than I've ever been aware of it.
That's, Maury, that's a great, there's a little, is it on you, Maury? Is there a little thumping in the back at all? There, now it stopped.
Oh, upstairs, yeah. Yes.
Okay. All right.
Sorry.
So I think what you're sharing is a really great example of what we're talking about, of higher love. In that when you hear stories of people doing wonderful things over the world, and if you haven't seen on YouTube John Krasinski's Some Good News, or
Oh yeah,
you got to watch some of that. That's great stuff. But this is a great example of you don't know the personalities of these people. You don't know them personally, but you see something in their doing, in their actions, and what happens that is inspiring, and that allows you that you feel close to them, that you feel connected to them. And what I want to invite us to think about is what you're connecting to is the divine presence that is in them. When you see somebody doing actions of kindness and goodness and courage and bravery and all of those things, it's those deeper qualities that you're identifying with and you're feeling the love for, that's present in real people all over the place. But again, it's your attachment is not to Joe Schmo, the person who's doing that thing, which would be the lower love, but it's how that divine presence manifests in that person. So thank you, Maury. That's a great example.
And all of that is ahava, or we don't use ahava?
Yes, yeah, all of it's ahava. Now, it's great to know, just like, Eskimos have lots of words for snow, we also do have lots of words for love, and it's especially found in the Sheva Brachot, the 7 wedding blessings. There's ahava, achva, shalom, re'ut. Re'ut is like, that there's friendship, that there's neighborliness, there's all these different shades of love that we experience, but all of it is around this sense of ahava on all these different levels. Yeah.
Thank you.
Rabbi, was interesting. I had never thought about it in the way that you put it out, about it's like a spectrum.
Yes.
Right. And fear is on one end of a spectrum, which, as you described, and I think is right, a negative outcome, fear of a negative outcome. And then the idea of awe, which is being overwhelmed, but generally in a positive way. So you have the spectrum going from like a negative outcome to a very positive outcome, and it's all kind of relational, going up a scale.
Yes.
I had never thought about it that way before.
Yeah, thanks for commenting on that, Dennis. This is kind of a core Kabbalistic idea about the divine qualities, that if we take that quality of gevura, which is strength, boundary, it also gets associated with fear, that we always think about fear in a negative way. And as you're commenting, it doesn't have to be a negative way. It all depends on where am I identifying with? Who am I identifying with at a given moment that I'm experiencing that fear? If I'm identifying with myself as a separate being, then that element that we call fear will manifest in a lower form. It will be, a negative outcome that will somehow be threatening to my separate being that I'm in. Or, you want to say our loved ones, you could say our extensions of myself as separate beings, in that kind of way. But when you start to identify that, who I am at the core, and this is not just as an intellectual idea, but to actually begin to experience more and more that I am the same divine energy that is you and is everything out there, and all of it is just the one presence, then that thing we call fear manifests more in awe and has more of a positive one, something that we don't have to shrink away from. But as the texts put it, sometimes does induce trembling, trembling before the one. So, but in a good way. Other thoughts?
Okay. Can I ask something?
Yes. Hi, Katie. Yes. Please.
Yes. Hi, Rabbi Quad and everybody. Okay. Hope everybody is doing well, guys. So I actually have a question. How to find love and divine presence if, say, somebody is doing you wrong?
Yeah. Well, I think in that moment, when there's an action that's happening, is that there's a difference between the action and the person, meaning that we learn and we know intuitively that every single person is created in the divine image, but not every single action is a divine action. So, they're for all the different reasons that any of us or another person engages in an action that creates divisiveness and pain and suffering. It's that divisiveness and pain and suffering that's in the action that we don't love, that we stand against, that we, all of that. But at the same time, there is the possibility of an awareness of the person as also being an expression of that divine presence. And that's hard. It's really, really hard, because when we are witness to people who act in ways that create suffering and pain, it's so painful for us. It's very difficult sometimes to separate the person from the action, and we identify the entire action with that person. And this comes into a sense of, this is a bigger thing that we can get into. We'll save it for another time, but is the idea of evil. And is there a person that is an evil person? Well, even Pharaoh in our tradition was not considered evil in the heart, was somebody who, in fact, it was God that ended up hardening Pharaoh's heart towards the end. And in many of the midrashim, Pharaoh comes back, as there's some very popular midrashim where Pharaoh comes back as the king in the story of Jonah that we read on Yom Kippur. And if you remember the story of Jonah, this is the first king that encourages his people to do repentance, to do tshuva. And Jonah is is upset at God because he wants God to punish the people of Nineveh. He doesn't want them to have the opportunity to do tshuva. They were so wicked, but immediately, as soon as he speaks out, the king does it. And the midrashim say this king is Pharaoh. Is Pharaoh reincarnated in another lifetime? Because Pharaoh didn't have the opportunity to do tshuva, wasn't able to do tshuva in the story of the Exodus. He continued to harden his heart. Others, there was another opportunity for it to happen. And what's so just deep about this is that it's pointing to that every person, a Pharaoh, a whatever, in their soul of souls, in their heart, in their long journey, is not evil. But their actions over and over again absolutely are. And we all have to make decisions. Humanity has to make decisions about how do we stand against those the actions and those people to make sure to protect, the goodness of the world.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any
Yeah, I
last,
know.
last comments before we close?
Mhm.
All right. Well, a pleasure, everybody. Thank you for another beautiful Tuesday morning. And I do want to give a little plug. I'm going to send out an email about this, but it's an event that is starting next Tuesday. It's going to be a 3-session program, and it is absolutely the experience of meditation in action. So if you want to have a real challenge for meditation in action, I really hope you'll come. The program is called Can We Talk? Building Relationships Through Disagreement. And you'll see it, it came out in yesterday's e-blast, and it's under the adult education section of our website. And really what it is the opportunity to speak with people who are different from you politically about important issues in the world, issues like immigration, like racial justice, like should politics be in the synagogue or not. But the purpose of the program is not to advance any particular perspective on any of these issues, not to have an agenda on this, but instead to how can I be present with the humanity and the values and the divine presence in the person who I am disagreeing with. And the session is being planned by 6 people, 3 who would consider themselves liberal and 3 conservative. There's going to be reading for each one. And again, we'll be learning about learning about skills, communication skills, and over again, just like in meditation practice, how we come back to the breath and the presence over and over again. How do we continue to stay present with our own experience, come back to the communication skills we're learning, into how to build relationships with the other. If we can't figure out how to do this in a highly controlled environment, we're doomed. So this is an opportunity to do that. I hope you'll register. You have to click on a Zoom link to pre-register, and starts out Tuesday evening. And it will be 3, July 14th, July 28th, and August 11th, every other Tuesday night to go through here. So hope to see some of you on that program. Take care, everybody.
Rabbi?
Yeah, thank you, Rabbi.
Any questions about that? Sorry. Any
No,
questions?
I
about
don't
that?
have a question about that. I was listening, and it's Sherry.
Hi, Sherry.
I just want to say that I find the information that you shared about anxiety being part of godliness is very comforting to me.
Good.
It puts it in a different perspective. So if I'm feeling anxious about my illness or what's going on in the world, I can look at it in a different way. It's not threatening. It's scary, but it's not threatening because it comes from a divine source.
Beautiful. Thank you, Sherry.
Thank you.
Oh, thank
Thank
you.
you, Rabbi.
All right. Take care.
Thank
Thank you, everyone.
Good
Very
day,
helpful.
Thank
everybody.
you. Thank